I was in different dimensions, the dark night of the soul and spiritual warfare. It was torturous. I died 3 times in the spiritual realm. After the first time, I realized I can't die. The second time when I died, I got shot. I almost laughed, but I could feel the bullets like I was awake. It was just like life had continued on. The spiritual little guy, he came to me and gave me a hug and then walked off. This demon entity spirit was next to me. Felt like I was being tested and challenged. It was spiritual warfare. I know that I was battling Satan. I was being tested. I had gotten COVID for the second time. It was a very serious time. We were being very careful because my mother, who I took care of over 20 years, lived with us, and she was a survivor of breast and brain cancer. So my wife and I, my 3 boys, masks and all the distancing, everything. And we basically, COVID came through our house and it came through hard. It was the Delta. And I got really sick. My mother went into the hospital August 27th. I went in August 29th. I should have gone in with her. We were looking at the meters and measuring the oxygen. And they say when it gets to 88, you should go to the ER in the hospital. Well, I don't know. We had the COVID fog. My wife's oxygen was maybe 92. And I was looking at mine, and time again, it was really low, 70s, 60s. So on August 29th, I wasn't feeling well, and I called. I was like, I got to go to the hospital. I was having more trouble breathing, and when they came, the ambulance, and they checked my oxygen, it was like 56, 58. They're like, Mr. Taylor, how are you standing? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just living, But it was pretty traumatic for myself, my wife, my boys, and as they were closing the ambulance doors and my boys were crying in the front yard, and I told them, Daddy's going to be okay. And I said to my wife and my boys, mind you, this is August 29th, 2021. I said, Daddy loves you. I'm going to be fine. I said, I'll see you in October. And I don't know why I said that, but I did. And I got to the hospital. Each day I got sicker. The treatment was not so great. Their protocols were making me sicker because I previously had a fungus called valley fever, which you can get from under the soil and ground in the western part of the United States, different states, Nevada, Arizona, Washington, California, Utah, whatever. And so to weaken my immune system, I was doing fine at the time, but you cannot take steroids when you have valley fever. And I told the doctors this in the hospital, but yet they gave me the steroids. From August 29th to September 6th, I got worse and worse. And I remember on September 6th, because it's my birthday soon after, I was 50, getting ready to turn 51 in 2021. I basically had done a fantasy football draft with my good buddy from New York, and I was real tired. And they had been putting this mask over my head and face, and it was to help me breathe. And they kept telling me, Mr. Taylor, this will get you out of here alive. And I did it once, and it was kind of hard. A second time, I could only take it because you felt claustrophobic. Could only take it for a few minutes. So that night I was really tired. I spoke to my wife on the phone and I said, well, I'm going to put on the mask tonight. I don't want to, but they said I should. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go to bed. I'm really tired. Backtrack real quick. When I first got to the hospital, I saw my mother. They wheeled me down because I was just a few doors down from her. And I saw her and she was doing pretty good. She was doing better than me. She didn't have, no ventilator, no oxygen. And, so I just gave her a kiss on the hand and told her she was going to be okay. And they were going to send her home September 5th or 6th, but my wife was still sick, so she didn't go home until September 10th. But September 6th, I guess after I went to sleep because my wife got a phone call at 11 o'clock at night, and they called in a panic. Mrs. Taylor, your husband's organs are failing. Death is imminent. We'll call you back in an hour. Click. And that's the phone call she received. The children were asleep. She was distraught, didn't know what to do or say. And, you could only imagine that type of phone call. It's like absurd. And this wasn't like in the dead heat of the pandemic. So it's not like they didn't have time to talk to her. They just, I don't know, maybe they were in that much of a rush. They never told her. And I don't know if I had coded or actually it passed. But all I know is I was no longer present. They called her an hour or so later and said that I was on the ventilator. She was not allowed to come see me in the emergency room or in the ICU until I think September 21st or September 20th. So the journey began. I never saw a moment of darkness. I was in different dimensions, definitely the dark night of the soul and spiritual warfare. It was torturous. There were some positive moments in a coma, but it was like vignettes, like mini movies that just kept playing over and over. I would, see these scenes where I was in the hospital. I would travel to California. I was getting on a plane to Mars. I was getting on a plane to London, England with my son. While I was in a coma, I died 3 times in the spiritual realm and the other dimensions. After the first time, I realized, wow, I can't die. And the second time when I died, I got shot outside of my home. And I almost laughed, but I could feel the bullets. It was so like, I don't know, like I was awake, you know what I mean? Like, but I didn't know that I was in a coma. It was just like life had continued on. And I guess in some ways, mentally, I was still stuck in that hospital bed. But while I was in a coma, it's not like I ever saw myself on the ventilator. I was just in the hospital and I was being tortured, dealing with now. Meanwhile, my family was amazing. My wife was there like twice a day, fighting, advocating for me. But in a coma world, in dream dimension world, I thought that she was cheating on me, trying to kill me. I mean, it was just torturous. I remember after I was shot, that, second death that I had mentioned, I astral traveled to my home. But I had an option to see my 14-year-old now, he was 12 at the time, to see him 5 years into the future. And I didn't want to. So I just went to my sofa in the living room. But what was so extremely fascinating is that I saw one of my twin sons. He's a spiritual little guy. He came to me and gave me a hug and then walked off. But I saw my wife and friend and a business associate of hers, and they were doing some stuff. And then it was like this demon entity spirit was next to me, who was, I guess her in my dimension dream world, felt like a total nightmare, was her boyfriend. But he was sitting on the side, like next to me, like it's like he was showing me this reality or something. I remember my wife and her friend, they were in 90s VHS color and technology. And my twin son, who came and hugged me, he was like in, 4K super HD technology. It was really wild, very bright. And, but what was fascinating, he told my wife that daddy came to the house and daddy's going to be okay. She was like, oh, okay, whatever. But so I went through scene after scene and vignette and experiences and really being tortured. And I remember there was a time where felt like I was in like a dungeon or a underground area in a restaurant in Phoenix. And there were these like tiki torches and lights, but it was real dark. I wasn't tied up, but I was sitting down and I couldn't really move. But there was like a white light underneath me. And I remember I just felt trapped, and all that I could do and all that I knew was to call on God. And I just went through the cycle. I was like, God, Jesus, mom, my wife's name, my 4 boys, and I just kept repeating it. God, Jesus, mom, my wife, the 4 boys. And after saying it, I think 3 or 4 times, I think it was 3 times, I kind of got freed. And then I left and went to like another scene. So it was really an experience where I felt like I was being tested and challenged. It was definitely spiritual warfare. I know that I was battling Satan. I was being tested and threatened. There was a time when I remember being in the hospital room, and the respiratory therapist, this is still, not in real life, in a coma, she had taken away my oxygen and I was struggling to breathe and I was going to die. There was about 30 or 40 people in the room, in my hospital room, from the hospital. And I remember like trying to get my breath to talk to them. And I remember saying, can I get my oxygen back? And then I gathered myself. I got real brave and courageous. I got real indignant. And I said, if you kill me, my family is going to come after you. And I said, you have no idea who I am. I said, I'm a spiritual giant and I will haunt you. I will come after you. And I started pointing at each one of them, and I knew some of their names and I was calling them out. And eventually they gave me back the oxygen. And what was wild is that I didn't wake up till from September 6th to October 16th. It was 40 days, but I think day 37 or 38, I think it was around October 13th. I awakened, but it was late at night. My wife wasn't there. I think visiting hours were until 8 p.m. And the hospital at night, I can't speak all the time, but I know from my experience and during COVID was terrible. And you can imagine, I mean, I was in a complete slumber, so weak. I lost 36 pounds of weight and muscle. I was just so frail and broken. I was trying to, with the vent, I was, I guess, making noise, but I was trying to lift up my hand because I still had my locks at the time, but I just remember I was sweating. I was so hot. And I was trying to like clean my forehead. Well, the nighttime nurse or an aide had come in, and instead of really trying to turn on the lights and look at me or talk to me or see what was going on, they just assumed that I was trying to pull my ventilator out. Oh my gosh, Sabrina, I was so angry and stressed and distraught and frustrated because I just wanted them to dry off my face and my head. And they put restraints on me and and it was hard and it actually hurt. And all I could do in my anger and my frustration, and I don't know if I cried or what I did, but I was just so frustrated that I just went back to sleep. I went back to a coma land. I woke up, I think, 2 days later again at night, and I think they restrained me again. That may have been the 15th. I do remember when I woke up that the next morning, or what appeared to be the next morning to me, it was maybe the first time I had awakened during the day. And a nurse came in the room and she was like a sweet angel to me because she saw the restraints on me. And she's like, "Oh my God, who did this to you? I'm so sorry." And she took the restraints off of me. And I, and she was just, I mean, just loving on me and nursing and caring for me. And I was awakened for good. And that was October 16th. And then the healing journey begun. But it was challenging because when I saw my wife, the last image I saw of her in a coma realm was that she was going to divorce me. She was going to marry her boyfriend and she was, trying to kill me. And she had just played like this video of our life together and then her new future life with her new boyfriend and family. I mean, I was just so, you could imagine when I saw her in real life in the hospital room. And she's like, "Hi, baby." Da, 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 da. And I'm just so angry and frustrated with my head. I'm like, "Don't baby me. You trying to kill me." Like, you know what I mean? I could not tell that wasn't real. It felt, everything felt so real. Even the spiritual tests, the going to Mars, like all that stuff. So once I finally could talk, and I was trying to talk through the vent, I said to her, "Did you have somebody at the house?" Because I wanted to know what I saw in a coma when I astral traveled to my home. Was that real?
Of course.
And it was. It freaked her out, freaked me out, but it was confirmation that, like, whoa, whatever was happening in this dimension. And then she actually confirmed that my son said that, daddy's going to come home and that that he's going to be okay. He told her that. And she told me that in the hospital. So then I got to FaceTime my boys and they were so happy. I mean, it was really something.
Definitely was, yeah. And it sounds like, of course, you were going through all of it, but at the same time, your family was also, your wife was also going through it because she wasn't sure what was happening with you and if you will come back out of the coma, your kids as well. So, definitely traumatic times for all of you. But
Well, and you know what's wild? They kept telling her I would awaken. They stripped the sedation medicine and took stuff away, and I wasn't moving. And so then they ordered a CAT scan of my brain. That came back positive, and then they waited a few days and they took away more medicine. And they said, "Mrs. Taylor, he'll wake up. He'll be up." Nothing happened. So she and the doctors were kind of in a panic. So then they did an MRI of my brain and it came back normal. Now, meanwhile, they saw early on, because literally around my birthday, which is like 4 days after I fell into a coma, my wife had gotten audio of all my friends and family. My buddy had put it together wishing me happy birthday. And she played it over FaceTime over the phone. And I guess I heard it because that was one of the positive things in a coma. I had the biggest birthday party. It was like a black tie affair, ballroom event. And every person from every aspect of my life, elementary, high school, the two colleges I went to, friends from when I was a professional actor, like all types of people, family, they were all there at my birthday party. So I guess this must have been the birthday party in my subconscious mind that I've always wanted, but I had it in a coma and it was really fun. But, I mean, so just to show you like early on, and then, them seeing me move and respond because my wife and boys had played, I'm an MC and, I'm from New York City and I've been rhyming since forever. And they played some of my favorite hip hop groups, like A Tribe Called Quest and KRS One and De La Soul. And I actually responded. And, while I was in a coma, I started dancing. And then my kids and wife were so happy. But then the I guess the doctor or the nurse said, turn it off, turn it off. And they were like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they were like, we have to stop. And they're like, is he okay? They're like, he's fine, but my blood pressure shot up. Like it was like off the charts. And they were like, no, Mrs. Taylor. They're like, did we hurt him? Did we hurt him? They're like, no, 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 it's okay. It's just that we want to calm him down, but it's good to know that he's in there. I actually responded to the music. So, but that's not surprising knowing me because I love hip hop. So, but those types of things are things that you just can't imagine, and you can't fathom. And for me, to think about what my wife and my boys went through. But I'll tell you, about a week after I awakened, my wife had waited and she comes into the hospital room one day with the hospital chaplain and they come in and it's like all like serious. So, in my head, I'm thinking my wife is going to ask me for a divorce. And I'm like, I'm getting sad. And I'm like, oh my God, what are they going to say to me? And my wife had revealed to me and with the chaplain that my mother died on September 21st, 2021, while I was in a coma. And, Sabrina, that just killed me. It devastated me. I never imagined because she was doing so well. And she, I found out she came home on September 10th and then went back in the hospital on the 11th. And I won't get into all the stuff, but she basically died of pneumonia and she was not given the proper medicine to help her. And, you or I could die of pneumonia if we're not properly treated. So that was a hard one, as you could imagine, to awaken to that when I just knew in my heart that she was fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially after you've awakened, you still have this long road of recovery ahead of you. So you're still not out of the woods just yet.
Not
And
at
then
all.
to be faced with this news of the one person that is so close to you and has been so close to you your whole life is just horrendous.
My whole life, I've never ever questioned God. And I've come to understand now that I chose this experience just like I chose my parents. And going through a coma was part of my journey and story to go through the dark night of the soul, to heighten my spiritual gifts, to evolve my soul. I can't fathom that I had to do it this way, but, and I told my mother years ago, Ma, she was, like I said, a survivor of breast and brain cancer. She had dementia. She had been in a wheelchair since 2013. And at this point, her speech was compromised. She would whisper. My wife and I understood her and stuff, but it was just really challenging. And so I remember 2018, 2019, I'd said, Ma, if you're ready to go, I was like, me and my wife and the kids were fine, But my goal, honestly, each day was to bring my mother joy and to make her laugh. And she loved my four sons and seeing them and watching them grow up and playing with them. And she would just, sit at the kitchen table and look out the window and watch them play in the yard. And I'd go outside. She'd play catch with the ball with them, even from her wheelchair, And so my children learned so much from her. She taught fifth grade for years in New York City and Harlem. And even being almost nonverbal, she taught them life lessons of love, perseverance, compassion, empathy, strength, determination. and so much joy. And she loved and doted on them. And we celebrate her all the time and talk about her all the time, even to this day. So I just
Amazing.
thank God for that.
Sounds
And
like she was an amazing woman.
oh, she was. My mother was. So a little insight. Both my parents were shot. My father was murdered when I was 6 years old. And before my eighth birthday, when I was 7, my mother was shot in the head and left for dead. She got up with her brains oozing out of her head, got in her car, and drove 9 blocks to my father's old candy store. And my mother got remarried, and my stepfather was working there. And they rushed her to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital and they saved her life. And I remember my sister and I were brought to the hospital, which was super traumatic for me, seeing my mother in that state, but they didn't know she was going to survive. So I guess whoever at the time decided that's they were just thinking like, hey, we don't know. But she took a year off of work and had to relearn everything and then went back to teaching for like another 20 some odd years. But she had bullet fragments in her brain and like a mesh screen. The doctor got kind of famous because, 1977, nobody was surviving something like that. I mean, this was like literally bullets in her brain, in her head. And my mom she was more than strong. She was a Taurus the bull, tough as cookies, and very, very sweet and nurturing. But she was a tough Harlem girl.
And do you mind, Eric, because a lot of our audience will be in the grieving process, unfortunately, having lost somebody that they've loved, somebody close in their family.
Yeah.
And would you mind speaking about how the grief process was for you, and especially if you have any advice? And what I'd also like to ask is, considering you have children, how do you help them cope with the emotions of grief?
For me, my life has been marked to entertain, educate, and inspire. And I know for me, that 6-year-old boy felt this heavy weight and obligation to take care of my mother and my sister after my father was murdered. It's hard to imagine what my wife and kids went through. They shared with me, the fears and doubts, but also the faith. And when I left I went from the first hospital to the second facility where I awakened and they took me off the vent and put the trach on and all that. And then the last 14 days, I went to a rehab facility where I did 4 therapies a day, 2 OTs and 2 PTs. It was literally like a job. And I had the movie, the Rocky theme playing in my head. Like I had to get my strength back and get back. But I got there, maybe it was November 6th at night. But the next morning, my wife was able to bring my boys, and the people at the facility let me go outside in the wheelchair, and I got to see my boys. I saw them on FaceTime after I awakened, but this was the first time since August 29th that I got to see them in person. And when I saw them and I hugged them, my 14, was at the time my 12-year-old, when I held him and we were all crying, I could feel the fear leave his body, his little 12-year-old body. And it just, and I just held him and kissed him and told him, Daddy's okay and I love you. And I think for them, the phone wasn't enough, of course, right? They needed to touch their father to know that I was really alive and well and getting better and coming home. And so we've dealt with a lot of repairing, a lot of healing. And I think each year, some of the hurt and the pain dissipates. But I can tell you from that 6-year-old boy, and I'm now 53, I still miss my father every day. But I think what's hard for people, and it can be a hard thing to grasp and comprehend or to do, but you have to celebrate your family and your loved ones that pass on and honor them and remember them and joy and the gratitude, right? The 3 highest frequencies are love, gratitude, and being your true authentic self. And part of my authenticity is to, I don't care if people laugh at my jokes or like my rhymes, because I'm doing it for my dad in heaven. And now I'm doing it for my mom in heaven and also God in heaven. But, my boys, we talk about grandma and we talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas and her birthday and just things that she would do with them. And so we laugh and smile and celebrate her quite literally every day. You know, sometimes things will just come up and I'll just be like, oh my God, remember when grandma used to do that? They're like, yeah, yeah. And they go off on tangents. So her birthday is coming up in April. And just like we have the last 2 years, we'll celebrate her again this year and tell stories and just remember the good times and honor her, because she's with us. I feel her presence every day. And that still lights me up. And I talk to her. I talk to her all the time. So I would tell anybody, don't your loved ones don't want you to stop living, don't want you to stop celebrating, don't want you to stop enjoying life and living a life from your heart with joy. So talk about them, honor them, remember them, celebrate them. Remember their favorite color or song and talk about it, their favorite dessert, whatever, and that's what we do.
So beautiful. It sounds amazing. And I think that's so true that instead of just repressing, I think, our feelings of sadness, if we just channel that into the blessing we felt to have had those people in our lives for as long as we did, and the good times that we lived together, that's how their memories can live on and how they can still be a part of our lives moving forward.
Definitely.
That's an amazing advice.
Thank you.
Eric, I wanted to ask you, because during the days that you were in a coma, it sounds like most of the things that you've experienced were distressing and negative. After you came back and you've thought of the experiences that you lived in another dimension, did you think of why you lived through those experiences and not others? Do you have an explanation for why you would have gone through? I mean, I don't want to call it hell, but it sounds like it was not a positive place.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, I realized it was facing my inner demons, spiritual warfare, dark night of the soul. I can remember nightmares that I had as a little boy after my father was murdered. And I suffered for, felt like years, but I'm sure it was like maybe a year or so with these reoccurring nightmares and dreams that would make me, at 6 and 7, run to my mom's bedroom and go get in a bed with her. And I think for me, it was about facing all those fears, facing it head on, and really understanding that we don't die. Our soul is eternal and it lives on. And so, as I mentioned and talked about the first two, but even the third time I died in a coma, it was almost like comedy to me. I'm like, it's okay. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm alive. I'm strong. I'm well. Because in the spiritual realm, you realize that, your soul, it's everlasting. And I think for me, I didn't really ever fear death. I think more my fear was like the way or how I would die or the people I would leave behind. But going through this experience, I feel like it gave me that victory to overcome that, to really understand that you have to enjoy and live life to the fullest every moment. Now, I've always been someone extremely appreciative and gratitude. And as I like to say, hashtag deep water faith, because, one thing I don't do and I've never done in my life is play games with God. There's nothing more important to me than the truth. And I can definitely say that what I went through was one of those experiences that really made me see the truth in terms of the connection to God and faith and knowing that there's nothing to fear. And so I realized that it was an upgrade. I've really it's kind of increased my senses. I have an eye disease that I inherited from my mother. It's called RP, retinitis pigmentosa. And your vision only gets worse over time. But after going through a coma and almost dying, and I went to, after all my rehab and everything, and I went to the eye doctor, no joke. I actually had an increase in my vision in my bad eye, my right eye. And there's no reason for that. There's definitely not a scientific reason. So it was only spiritual and God. And that's really deep. That's humbling. It's heavy and it's real for me because, that's something that I deal with and have dealt with my entire life. And so I know that my hearing, my sense of smell, I can hear like I guess the binary code of the internet. 00111122. Like I can see things even as a professional intuitive astrologer. When I work with my clients, a lot of my insight and knowledge is beyond my astrological interpretation and analysis and my knowledge. It's really downloads from God in the heavens and spiritual. Like I can visualize placements in the birth chart and almost see little glimpses of you performing what the energies would explain or describe in real life. And I get like these flashes and visualizations. So what I went through, definitely, it was an upgrade and it was quite a change. And I know forever it's taken away fear.
Beautiful. And because you mentioned astrology, I know that this is what you do, and I was really keen to get into this. So, for those of us that think of astrology as, that weekly horoscope in the magazine, of you might be a bit sick this week, or you'll meet the love of your life tomorrow. Tell me, what is astrology to you? Because I believe we have different definitions, and I think yours is much better.
Little insights of those. Astrology is the map of your life. And you're not just your sun sign. You have the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, different asteroids, Chiron, the wounded healer, true black moon, Lilith, the north and south node of the moon. And all of these, the 360-degree 12th house zodiac wheel, are aspects of your life. These planets are these frequencies, vibrations, these light energies. Just like the moon controls the tides of the oceans, it affects a woman's menstrual cycle. The farmer's almanac helps the plants grow during the night. Each energy affects different aspects of your life. And you chose your parents. You chose this map. And a map is something for you to read to get to a destination. That's what astrology is about. It's about gaining insight. And for me, I unlock this ancient wisdom for you called astrology to show you all the complexities that are inside of you, your gifts, your skills, your talents, your spirituality, your intuition, your relationships, your parents, your purpose, your destiny, your traumas, your wounds. It's all there. And so for me, I still get excited every time when I bring up a birth chart. And when you look at that horoscope in the magazine, right, and it says, Eric's a Virgo, what it's really breaking down and how they are interpreting it is not based on your sun sign, but nobody tells you that. So that's why when people read it, they're like, oh, that doesn't resonate or relate to me, because they're basing it on what your rising sign ascendant is. Mine is Scorpio. And the ascendant, the rising sign, is in the first house, and it's set based on the time of birth, not your date, the time. And at that time, you're in the eastern horizon in the sky, the constellation of Scorpio was, rising on the horizon in the east. And so me having a Virgo sun in the 11th house, well, the next person could be born the same day at a different time, and their sun sign could be in the 4th house or the 7th house. We're going to be totally two different people, even if all the other planets are aligned the same, because each house represents like 20 to 40 different themes and aspects of your life. The first house is the only house of self. And then from there, it goes right to the second, third, fourth, and goes, counterclockwise. And they all represent themes and aspects of your life, of you in relationship to others. So it is so fascinating. And I tell people, if I was God or president, I would have each person get a birth chart reading. I would cut down divorce. I could eliminate a lot of the pains and traumas and crises. People would learn true self-love, walk in their destined path, and really become the best versions of themselves. Just imagine you with God in heaven, and you're choosing these life lessons to learn before you incarnate through the portal of your mother's womb, right? You amazing women, you guys are the portals. And you're selecting, I need to have a challenging relationship with my sister and the tough things with my mom and my dad. Oh, my parents get divorced, whatever you select. But these lessons are karmic lessons for your soul to evolve in this lifetime. So when you get a birth chart reading, you are quite literally remembering what you already pre-selected. And then it's my job to explain it and interpret it for you to kind of give you the map to the keys to success for your soul in this lifetime.
So it sounds that we can get a lot of information about ourselves.
Everything.
And one of the things that you mentioned was we can prevent divorce or unhappy relationships. Can you walk me through how this can be helpful in either finding a suitable partner or realizing if we're not with a partner that is right for us?
Definitely. One of the best things is to understand your Saturn return. And that's around 28 and a half, 29 years old. And coincides, show you how God works. There's a myth that we're an adult at 18 or 21. No way. Your brain is still forming. And no surprise here, women mature about 2 to 3 years ahead of men. And so the cerebral cortex is still forming in the medulla oblongata for women between around 25 to 28 or so, for men between like 27 and 30, 31. And so that coincides with the Saturn return at 28 years old. And each planet matures at different years. Mars at 27, the sun between 26 and 30, depending on the sign in the house, the moon at 21. And so this is really an indicator to show you when you are really kind of walking into your own self-awareness and identity. Saturn is about time, delays, restrictions, discipline, structures, hard work. It's our karmic lessons. It's the government, the authorities, sometimes the authority figures in your life. And you have to honor Saturn, whatever sign and house it's in. It's telling you a story of how you need to implement discipline, structure, and organization in your life and respond to your abilities. And when you do, Saturn will reward you with greater blessings, even though it's considered a malefic, a more negative energy planet in astrology, than the two benefics, which are Jupiter, which is all about abundance and fortune and wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies. And then the lesser benefic, Venus, which is the love language, relationships, money, arts, culture, entertainment, beauty, and our love language. And quite literally, Jupiter in the birth chart can represent the husband and Venus the wife. So in your fifth house, I can see your dating and romance and, all that type of stuff, your high school, college years. In the seventh house, it's the house of relationships, business partnerships, and quite literally marriage. So there's a lot of different planets and even asteroids and house placements that tell the story of your love life, the archetype or the character traits of the type of person you should marry, where and potentially when you can meet them, and all the different reasons where things can get delayed. So here's an example. I have Saturn in the seventh house in my natal birth chart. I didn't get married till I was 37 years old. That's in the house of marriage. Saturn delays. It doesn't block things. It can delay it, restrict it. But it's like you have to get disciplined in this area of life, organized, structured, and respond to your abilities. And then God will send you that helpmate, that life partner, that marriage, that committed relationship. So it took me about 36 years to find my wife. And once I finally found her, I was ready and we got married. The way our charts align up, it just so happens that my seventh house sign is her rising sign and her seventh house sign is my rising sign. And I didn't know this when we got married and met, but it just turned out that like our charts were aligned perfectly. And so to me, that's walking in your destiny and your purpose, but that's also God. I don't ever take God away from astrology. Astrology was the first calendar. It's older than all the religions, but astrology is quite literally in the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. So it's powerful.
It sure is. And it aligns, I have to say, with my own beliefs around knowing who you are before knowing who the right partner for you is. Because if you don't know who you are or what you want, then how could you ask anybody else to be your partner going somewhere where you're not sure where?
And loving yourself too, Sabrina. We love ourselves. It's so crucial, everyone, please. You know what I tell my clients, and I would tell you and your audience right now today? I say, if you got nothing else from watching this or hearing me, my greatest hope and dream and desire for everyone is please retire from negative self-talk. Hand in the pink slip today. It is no longer your job to talk bad about yourself. You are amazing. And I'm not talking silly woohoo fluff. You have to be maniacal intentional about being kind, compassionate to yourself, speaking kind to yourself, about yourself, and having even grace and mercy for yourself. We have to pour into ourselves, because once we do and have that true self-love and that connection to whatever you call, God or higher source, God, source, creator, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever you name the name, when you have the self-love and a connection to a higher spirit, then and really only then can you move forward in true love for another.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. And it's one of the lessons that I've learned myself over, I think, maybe the last year or 2 years. I probably also the culture that I come from, but I always was not necessarily that I was raised, but the culture that I come from is very much flaw based. So you're a better human if you can point out the flaws in somebody else, because that just sets you on a higher pedestal. And the way to prevent that is to see your flaws yourself and to just be the first to beat them to the punch, basically. So it was always in my mind and it was always on autopilot. I could have done this better. I could have been more. And I realized it wasn't helping me in any way, shape, or form. So I decided I would talk to me as if I was my best friend. So if I didn't manage to do something that I said I would do today, it would be, well, it's fine. Probably it wasn't meant to happen today. It's okay. Tomorrow's another day. I can just treat myself with love. And treating myself with love and compassion and realizing that even if I don't meet a certain expectation or a goal, but I'm doing the best I can, and that's literally everything I can do. To me, it's been a massive shift. And it also correlated with feeling less need, and I would say up to not at all, for other people's validation. So, what other people think of me is fine. They can share their opinions, but it just doesn't come inside anymore. So it can be positive and it's nice, or it can be negative. Either way, it just does not sway me in any way.
That's beautiful. And you're so right. It's important, right? What people say about you is none of your business. You have to love you. And, one thing in astrology, we can see through the true Black Moon, Lilith, and North Node, like who your tribe is. Who is the universe sending your way to support you and have your back? And that's really fascinating. And, the fact that you realize and have come to that, it speaks to your own introspection and your growth. I'm also a relationship coach, and I help my clients with really that deep looking within, that introspection. Because people think of loneliness or time alone and like, oh my God, I'm alone, depressed, and oh, this and that. And it's like, no, no, no. Being alone is the time to pour into yourself, to look within, to ask the challenging questions so you can grow and evolve. If you don't change, then if you're not growing and changing, then you're already dead. When we allow ourselves to get uncomfortable, right, and not be some Garfield fat cat sitting on the sofa watching Netflix and eating, cookies and potato chips all day. When we get uncomfortable, that's when we really open up and allow ourselves to grow through challenge and let God do the amazing work in our lives. So introspection is really important. And you can really evolve, and you could see that through like the three outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, really about the evolution of your soul in this journey in this lifetime. So I commend you for that. That's really important and really powerful. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And again, I couldn't agree more with, just being by yourself. It just brings so much clarity. I don't think being by yourself needs to mean being lonely. It can just bring you so much clarity. You just need to use the time wisely. And I'm definitely not encouraging anybody to be a hermit because I don't think that's very healthy either.
No, we need community. We need one another. We need socialization. It's important. But like you said, when you are alone, pour into yourself. read, research, ask yourself questions, meditate, pray, go within, being still and quiet, the mindfulness. That is, so powerful. And it's something that really builds up your spiritual man, so it's important to take that time to use the 12th house. 12th house is the isolation. Use that 12th house time to really understand and figure out who you are, explore the subconscious and unconscious mind. What are your dreams, your fantasies, your goals? Journal, write, keep a dream book. These are things that I do with my clients.
Oh, a dream book. Tell me more about that. I've never had one. So, what can we uncover with a dream book?
Oh, Sabrina, so much. What I have my clients do is really tap in to the concept of reprogramming your subconscious mind. And so we have to do different tools to make us more present in the now, more conscious and aware. If I'm being generous, we're living on rote memory with our subconscious mind during the day. We're only conscious anywhere from 3 to 15, maybe 3 to 10% of the time of the day. If you think about your life, right? Sabrina gets up, she does her routine. You're on autopilot. You can do it literally with your eyes closed because you know what needs to get done, how you do it, the processes and the systems. But that's all in the subconscious mind, which has been programmed into you from who? Mom, dad, government, society, school system, siblings, television shows, movies, magazines, the music. Well, that's not necessarily the way you want to live or what you've chosen. It's all the things that have been programmed into your subconscious mind. And some of those things and many of those things can be completely useless, improper, incorrect, not really who you are or not who you want to be today. So you have to go in and purge, release, surrender, and detox those things. So let's just say you go to bed tonight and you don't cheat with the technology and the cell phones. You actually do old school, pencil and paper. Get your notepad, put it by the bed. Maybe put some of your crystals by the bed too. They can help. And put the pencil there. And let's say you wake up tomorrow morning and you didn't dream. Well, that's okay. A lot of us don't dream or don't remember our dreams. But what's different? I want you to write down, Sabrina, I did not remember my dreams last night. And you may do this for 2-3 days in a row. But what you're doing is opening up a portal and you're really making a connection to that subconscious mind and those memories. Because what happens is we get tired. Our physical avatar bodies, we need rest to go to sleep to be renewed and restored. Your soul's not tired. It's like Eric in a coma. It's out traveling to different dimensions, the 5th and 6th and the 10th and 12th dimension, flying up to Jupiter and Mars and Venus, and it's getting information. But you can guide it. You're not a victim in real life or in your spiritual life, in your dream life. You can, with positive affirmations, guide your dreams and want to have your soul travel out of your heart, third eye, or crown chakra. And you may write down this dream book, 2-3 days in a row. Let's say you don't remember. You write down, I did not remember my dreams last night. Well, when you go to bed, let's say day 3, 4, you can actually guide your dreams. And you can, I know a code that I'll share with you guys that can help you remember your dreams and even make you conscious in your dreams. So you can say 10 times on your pillow out loud, 2137, 2137, 2137, 10 times. And it works. So you don't do it every night. And you shouldn't do it tonight. You do it, after a couple of nights of writing down, I did not remember my dreams last night, if you didn't remember them. And you say that code and you will not only start to remember your dreams, you may actually also become conscious and aware in your dreams that you're dreaming. And this is really a helpful tool. Even let's say if you're right-handed and you get in the mirror and you go to bed tonight, Sabrina, or you wake up in the morning and you're brushing your teeth and you're righty, brush your teeth with your left hand. It's going to make you more present and conscious. And that's the key. We want to be aware and present and conscious. Don't worry about the past and don't always focus on dreaming of the future. You have to live life present and conscious in the now. And those are just some of the tools. And I've got, many others that I use to help my clients to kind of shake themselves up out of the Saturnian bubble, the matrix that we live in, to be aware, to understand that there is a truth out there that when you take the time to be quiet and look within, revelations can pour out on you that really guide you to heal your past, to elevate your future, and to fulfill your present, that are really life-altering, tremendous blessings and healing.
And when we were talking about dreams, I couldn't help but wonder, do our dreams represent, so sometimes, in our dreams, we dream of people that we know or situations that we either want to have happen or that somehow reminisce from our past. So there might sometimes be a slight connection to reality. Do we need to look into that? Is it telling us something, or is it just memories, things that you see maybe on the news and is just sort of meshing around randomly?
That's a good question. I think it depends on each individual human being, their heart, their soul, their spirit. I'm not a dream interpreter, and you can search and find people. There's a lot of people who are legit and some who aren't. But I know for myself, I've had vivid dreams that have predicted the future. And I've had dreams that I thought I knew something and I misinterpreted it, or thought it was for one person, but it was for another. So you just have to be mindful and careful. But I think overall, they are tools of information to help us. And we can learn a lot from our dreams at night, and also our daydreams, our sudden downloads and visions, these bolts of insight that we get. And that's why I think it's so important to write. A lot of people tell you with journaling or manifesting, it's very important to write down your goals and dreams, and people do the vision boards or whatever. But yes, writing is really, really important. It's like a lost art. People don't read and write anymore, and don't do cursive. Like, these are things we should never give up. Should turn off the news, turn off the television, and read, write, listen to high vibrational, high frequency music. Turn off the negativity, the violence. You just don't need it. But, dreams are really here as gifts to give us information. Your soul is out there traveling in different dimensions. And, some people believe that, you're living on different dimensions at the same time. So who knows? There's so much to explore and to learn. But I think the most important thing is to stay curious in life, have an open mind. Right? Don't sit there and be like, oh, astrology's stupid. It's a sin and this and that. And you know nothing about it. That just shows a level of ignorance. Because if someone sits down with me, and I don't care who they are, I can show them through their birth charts some things that they would be like, wait a minute, how in the heck do you know that? How'd you know this? How did you know this happened to me at 7 years old? How'd you know this about my mom, my dad, my sibling? You know what I mean? Like, so it's all there. You could go to a therapist and sit there for 8 weeks, and they ask you questions or not ask you the right questions, and you not willing to open up and share, and you're just sitting there playing games with one another. Well, you come to me and do a birth chart reading for 65 minutes, I can reveal and show you everything. And I can see it all. So it's really, and I just, for me, I think it's about being curious and being spiritually hungry and having an open mind, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're open to learning, you can really gain a lot of insight, especially through astrology. And remember, these are knowledges that we're just remembering. The mystery schools in ancient times, people were astrologers first before they were doctors and scientists and priests and astronomers. They knew astrology first. Did you know astrology was the first calendar, right?
Oh, I
Sunday.
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So the first day of the week, Sunday, Sol is the sun. Monday, Lunes, the moon. Tuesday, Martes, the planet Mars. Wednesday, Miércoles, Mercury. Thursday, Jueves, Jupiter. Friday, Venus, Viernes. Date night, romance, chocolate, money, payday, right? Saturday, Sábado, Saturn, the day of the Sabbath, spiritual discipline. So that's it, 7 days. And those are the 7 planets. Obviously, the sun and moon are luminaries, but in astrology, they're considered planets. And these are the light bodies we could see with the naked eye.
Yeah.
From the sun to Saturn. Yeah.
Eric, I think it's been so enlightening, and I just love your life story, and I think we can all just learn so much from you and your experiences. But Also, I think we've already learned so much of what we can do and see through astrology as well, which has been really interesting for all of us. If people want to reach out and find out more, how can they find you?
If people want to email me, they can reach me at bige, astrology at gmail.com, or you can come visit my website, bigeastrology.com. I'm also on all the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at Big E Astrology. And I've got a wealth of information and videos for you to watch, and you can learn about your planetary placements. Come to my podcast on YouTube called Knowledge is Love. And I have monthly astrology meetings, like Astrological Coffee Talk with Eric. And I just love sharing this ancient wisdom with people. But I'm also very proud of my relationship coaching program, working with couples or individuals really to increase their self-love. It's called Elevators to Love. And I'm currently working on an astrology workbook and also 2 other books. So it's going to take me, hopefully by the end of 2025, but a book sharing my NDE, my near-death experience, and then a book on my relationship coaching program, Elevators to Love. But yeah, come check me out. Come visit. I don't bite. I'm very friendly. And for me, it's about me being of service to the collective and really trying to help people wherever they're at to become the best versions of themselves.